Hello, America. This is Call of Duty Goddess. Today is April the 20th, 2018. I did a video the other day on US, France, and Britain bombing Syria in reference to a chemical gas attack that they basically had no proof of. And, gee, wouldn't you know it, intel officials just admitted that the US bombed Syria with no proof of sarin attack. Go figure. Anyway, I thought I'd take this opportunity to go through some of the questions on this video, questions and comments and stuff, and answer them and get it over with, because I've been working on basically the part 3 to the Feeding the Dragon forever. And I have to be honest with you, with Lyme disease, my main problem, and that's why I had to stop doing videos, were the neurological symptoms. It's very difficult for me to find words and effectively communicate. It's like the communication aspect stopped working. And that's why it's difficult for me to do videos. I'm doing some protocols and things, and I'm feeling better, but this is going to take a while. So as I work on a big production or whatever, I thought I'd just tell you what's going on, because I did have a couple people comment, and I don't think it's fair to leave you hanging out there. So, let's see. Lyndon Eaton says, "You are onto something, but I don't think it will be the East per se that wins in the end. It will be the wealthy elite globalists that control both sides that win." And he's absolutely correct, if they are successful. They're trying to morph the thinking of the global goals towards an end result that will be a blending of several trains of thought. But the underlying agenda is to control over the lives of people from the cradle to the grave. And that's exactly right. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. That's what they do. See, I want to talk about that because this is a issue that I've seen. From what I have found is that the First Reich, the Second Reich, and the Third Reich, none of the Reichs ever died. They just expanded. And if you look at history from a historical perspective, you'll see that, because of course the First Reich is the Holy Roman Empire, which began in basically Germany and a little bit of France. And when the kingdom of the Franks got huge and took up a large portion of Central Europe, that is when the Pope crowned Charlemagne as the Holy Roman Emperor. Okay, now what that did, I have to tell you, was basically create a new world order in the year 800. And it wasn't per se the year 800. It was between, let's say, the year 800 to the year 1000. And this is significant because that new world order is still existing today. That new world order that was created between the year 800 and 1000 still exists today. Now, that new world order is basically, if you've watched Game of Thrones, you get an idea of how cutthroat it was during medieval times. If you were of noble descent, you were vying for the throne. And it was cutthroat. People were killing each other. Brothers were killing each other. Families were killing each other. Mothers, they had to, many times, and this is where I believe the story of Jesus comes in there somewhere, is a lot of people had to hide their firstborn son, and it was just a thing that they had to do. So with the creation of the Holy Roman Empire, what that did was set up a system to where the nobility, the highest of the nobility in each kingdom, were able to vote for their emperor. Okay, and instead of an emperor being passed down in one family for 300, 500 years, instead of one family ruling, it was voted on. And that, folks, was the New World Order. Who does that? The Vatican. The Vatican still does that today. The UN does it, and it's everywhere. It's basically how corporations are set up. It is the New World Order of olden times. Okay, because the cardinals, of course, elect the Pope. Let's go to another question. Here we go. How does this affect the West? The West are able to grow our own food, create our own products, and most of us have oil and other natural resources. Well, first of all, I told her to check out Feeding the Dragon series. She did. But this affects the West in the mere fact that I remember seeing an article, I think it was like from 2005, when the Bushes started buying up water in America. Lakes, ponds, streams, things like that. And I knew something funky was going on at that time. Couldn't put my finger on it because I didn't have all of the research that I have together. But you have that. You have Monsanto. Monsanto, I mean, pretty much controls things, because if you buy seeds from them, you can't, let's say, take a seed, grow corn or whatever, pick the corn, and then use a kernel from that corn to grow more. It doesn't work that way anymore. Monsanto has affected that in the aspect to where most farmers have to keep purchasing seeds every year. They can't sustain it on their own. And that is, folks, sustainable development, you know. I've seen a lot all over the America to where they're making laws. They made a law in Maryland a couple years ago. I think it was overturned. They made one here in Virginia as well about puddles, about charging you for water that was laying on the ground. I forgot what that was called. I can't think of words. Bear with me. Someone will know what I'm talking about. It was a big deal a few years back in the Obama administration. But that, and many people have gotten in trouble. I've seen videos and news clippings where people are getting in trouble for having small vegetable gardens in their yard. Laws are being made against that. So that's what this is. This is what you're seeing. Okay, let's see what this is. Evidently, America is the big kahuna because they're able to cripple any country with sanctions. And that starts that country's decline, and that the USA complains about the UN. USA started the UN after World War II to unite the nations of Europe again. And that goes back to what I was talking about. This is a good point, Kelly, is that I don't believe it ever died. From my research, I don't believe it ever died, and, you know, maybe I'm one of those ones, the conspiracy theorists, you know, and I wear that badge proudly, because the First Reich, the Holy Roman Empire, was supposedly killed by Napoleon, and I believe it was 1806. Now, let me give you an example here of how I believe the First Reich did not die, and that is when Napoleon, in 1798, took over Malta. The Knights of Malta were there, okay? So in 1798, Napoleon took over Malta. The Knights of Malta surrendered with no fight at all. So what happened within a month after the Knights of Malta surrendering? Well, Congress created the Department of the Navy. Now, the Department of the Navy already existed for 10 years or so, but they officially created the Department of the Navy within months around the time of the Knights of Malta surrendering to Napoleon. What happened at that time as well? The Office of the Surgeon General was created. What are the Knights of Malta? It's a military hospitaller organization. And if you look at how laws are created, international laws, and how ports are handled, there has to be a hospital at every port to check the people that are moving around from area to area. And it's always been that way. And that was what I believe, Vicki Davis was educating me on this, is how the international laws were set up. I mean, she words it much better than I do, but basically that's why I think it never died, because of the creation by Congress, the official creation of the Department of the Navy and the Surgeon General. It wasn't called the Surgeon General at the time, it was called something else. So we will move on to Kelly L2. Okay. Remember the Bush 43 list of countries to cause chaos? Yes. I want to show you something. I believe that Putin and all of them are working together. And I want to show you why, okay? And that's this. Putin is part of them. I don't believe any world leader would be in power today unless they were supposed to be in power and they had a job to do and they knew what their job was. Honestly, look at Putin. He is connected to the Rothschilds. All this. To the Rockefellers, to the Rothschilds, all of them. And from, I mean, what I've found, I haven't really looked into this, I've seen it quite a few places, is that Rockefellers are actually Rothschilds. They're, I think it was due to the women in the family. So if you see Putin, he's connected to all of these oligarchs. Well, what do you think Assad is? Do you think Assad's innocent in this? Assad's wife was on Wall Street. She was a bankster gangster. It wasn't for long. And I believe she is of noble descent. I remember seeing something somewhere that referred to her as Your Highness or her family. So these people are all nobility. All of them. And that's what I've found. If you look at their history, if you look at their relatives, the people that surround them, they're nobles. And they're of bloodlines. And think about it. Over 1,000 years, okay, 2,000 years of certain people being of noble descent and being high up in nobility. Well, don't you think they would all marry each other, marry off their children to each other? Back in the days of kings and queens ruled, instead of signing contracts, their daughters married their sons. So don't you think these people would all be interrelated by now? Every country. I think so. But hey. Anyway, moving on. We'll finish with this. But see, the reason that they're causing chaos is, I believe, to rebuild it with this infrastructure. Rebuilding the Silk Road, you have to realize, is not about trade. It's not about pipelines. It's not about electricity. It's about the combination of all of those, because when you combine them all, that will create total control of food, water, electricity, everything that human beings need to survive. Everything. And have you done part 3 on feeding the dragon? No, I haven't. And with this crap with YouTube and stuff, I'm probably gonna have to make a Patreon account. I started one and doing all these other accounts. I'm not really good at that, and it's going to take a while. So therefore, it's going to take me away from my video making, and then I have, of course, the Lyme to deal with. I just want to tell you in recent history how Russia and China were empowered. And the Obama administration with the Russian reset was nothing but a ploy to give Russia technology, missile defense, yet again, and it also put Putin and Russia in the World Trade Organization, and that's important. The Obama administration did a mirror image of the Clinton administration, when the Clinton administration basically empowered China. You have Chinagate, transfer of wealth, power. Transfer of wealth was done through Mena, Arkansas, with the Clinton administration in China. I mean, the Riyadis were basically Chinese intelligence, and they owned banks in Mena, Arkansas, which, you know, Lippo Group, uh, and you had the Bushes, I think, had a bank in there. Hell, they even owned the plane that Barry Seal, one of the planes that Barry Seal hauled the cocaine and money back and forth in arms to the Contras. So, I mean, these people are all involved, and they're all involved in empowering China and Russia. Now, why would they empower China and Russia? Well, China and Russia has a system of total control, and that's what they want. So the system that has the most control wins, and it's a close race when you come to Islam, the Middle Eastern countries, and communism. Okay, we'll move on. I don't think the counterstrike by US, UK, France is real. No one killed. Nothing destroyed of value or military significance. The Russians were told in advance what the targets would be. This is a psych op. Fake attack in response to fake chem gas attack in Duma. Reports say 103 missiles fired, 71 shot down, no KIAs. No military assets destroyed. Even the Russian media says it was all orchestrated. One photo of previous destroyed building allegedly attacks by missile, building collapse. All disinfo for the sheep. Trump talks BS, theater, just like the stage gas attack on Syrian civilians, perpetrated by white helmets. All a psych op. Yes, I think he called it. And I said it makes sense. Anything to get war started. If you look at America's and Canada on Google Earth, I'm thinking America has the location. We're in the center, and you know what they say about location. Wonder if America will look like Syria in a few years. See, and that's my concern, is with Syria's location. Let me pull up the map here. Bear with me. Yeah, with Syria's location here, with the Silk Road being around here and starting, and what is it, Astana, Kazakhstan, around here somewhere in the lower part of Russia, Central European place where the head of the New World Order is. Come on, guys. What's that? They have like the pyramid with up at the top is the where they worship or whatever. Come on. This is all about the Silk Road and total control over everything, and you're not hearing it anywhere. And I wish I didn't have this darn disease so that I could continue my work with what I'm doing. Anyway, location here. Now let's go to Google Earth and look at the location of Canada and America. So Canada, America, Mexico, Central and South America. Oh my, maybe Central America that's going to get beat the hell out of, because that's a skinny area and they're going to have to run lines and stuff through that. So maybe it's Central America that's going to get hit. And oddly enough, when the Obama administration, I don't even think they were in power 3 months when they did coups in El Salvador. I think it was Peru. I think it was 3 Central American nations that they did that. And oddly enough, well, not oddly enough, but true to form, they sent weapons in beforehand. After they sent weapons into the countries by using operations, and I'll name the operations as well. They had an operation that many people haven't heard of, Operation Castaway, which sent weapons to El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Yeah, I think those 3. Operation Castaway, and that was immediately when the Obama administration came in, was basically letting arms go to MS-13 and the gangs in these areas. And this Operation Castaway was coming from Florida, and the weapons were going here. And then you have, of course, Operation Fast and Furious, all right, here in the border of Mexico. And then, of course, you have Operation Zero Footprint through the Middle East. And oddly enough, or true to form, every one of these countries that we sent arms into and stirred up shit, we brought back refugees from. Again, back to Operation Castaway. What did Obama do? What was it? I think 2012? The Dreamer Act, where bring kids in from these countries. Remember that? These kids were mainly MS-13 members. And then after a year or so, it was so clogged up with bringing these kids in. Hell, he started sending planes down on our taxpayers' dollars. Now, how much do you want to bet there was probably cocaine loaded in the cockpits of those big giant commercial airliners? I wouldn't doubt it for a minute. And then again, with your Operation Fast and Furious, Obama opened the border totally here. Had it just totally open. Operation Zero Footprint to the Middle East. The refugees coming in from Libya and Syria. I mean, come on. Is it not obvious what they're doing? And you have to, if you don't understand the mind of a globalist, you're not going to you're going to forever say, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Well, okay, a globalist does not believe in this line right here. Most of your globalists are of noble descent. They're nobility. They're very, very rich people. They don't believe in the borders because they stopped believing in borders a long time ago. Because what they believe in, folks, is blood. Bloodlines. They don't look at borders. They look at bloodlines and the plan, which is the total control of the globe. And that goes back to the New World Order that Charlemagne helped to create in between the year 800 and 1000, when the nobility created a system based on the Vatican system, where the Pope and the Emperor is voted on by the highest of the nobility. Look at our electoral college. I have tried to find who are the people in the electoral college from each state. I've never been able to find them. I found one, basically. And guess what? He's a Bush. He's dead now, but he's a Bush. George Bush's brother, Prescott Bush Jr. He was H.W.'s brother. Anyway, back to the video. And we'll go back down the line. Yeah, I mentioned part 3 of Feeding the Dragon. Yeah, I told you about the Clinton administration and the Obama administration empowering Russia and China. And that's just the very final round that I've found. You know, all of the administrations have basically empowered Russia and China over the years. Couldn't be more obvious. Okay, I think I already, yeah. Okay, so I said it makes sense, and I wasn't even going to look into it. You know, I have actually given up on the news. It's all fodder, in my opinion. I've looked into so many things lately, and it's like, it's all bull. I don't believe in any of it. I really don't. So, when I said it makes sense, anything to get war started, the reply to his psych op, it's all being a psych op, I said it makes sense. Anything to get war started, if you look at America's and Canada on Google Earth, America has the location. So maybe not America, maybe Central America has the location that we need to look at. Maybe it's America, who knows, but one of these needs to be bombed the shit out of so all of the connections can be made from there. You get what I'm saying? When you want to interconnect the globe, that's what you have to start looking at when you're looking at locations now. When you do any kind of research or look at things, you have to look at a map and look at the location. Did I misunderstand you? You're saying Trump's attack was fake too? Well, yeah, I think a lot of news now is fake. I do. I believe we're run by the oligarchs. The oligarchs are of the noble bloodline that have ran. And the oligarchs that are in the main control, I believe, all hail from the Holy Roman Empire, the First Reich. Because you have Rome, Italy, all of that in the First Reich. And if you look at all the world wars, and if you look at how those two wars began, and all the wars in between as well, you know, the undeclared wars, they were basically started by countries that have to do with the Holy Roman Empire. And let me just show you a picture of that, because I think that'll give you a little bit of clarity. The Holy Roman Empire, also known as the First Reich. Now, it basically began in Germany here, and a little bit of France. And, you know, they say it didn't grow much. Baloney. Guys, it grew. And it never stopped growing, and it's taken over the planet, the Holy Roman Empire. And I have evidence of that, and that's what I want to show, but I'm having difficulty, again, you know, with these protocols with Lyme. I go through things of feeling bad and good and bad and good, and the neurological symptoms are excruciating for me because it's hard for me to communicate. Anyway, this is your First Reich. Holy Roman Empire never died. It just spread. I'll give you one example of how the boundaries around the Holy Roman Empire only grew. And basically in the 1600s, Russia signed a treaty with Poland to defeat Islam. So what that did, when Russia signed that treaty with Poland, it brought Russia into the Holy Roman Empire. See, and other nations in the Holy Roman Empire had signed treaties within treaties. And another thing about Russia that I have to tell you, with the Romanovs, I've researched the whole Romanov line. They ruled, what, about 300 years? The Romanovs in Russia. Number one, I do not believe that anyone in that family was killed, especially the king, the Russian Tsar. He was besties with his cousin, King George. They were almost identical looking. They talked all the time. They played dress up together, grown men playing dress up. These are the kind of people that rule today, by the way. Anyway, in the 1600s, when that treaty was signed, it really brought Russia in to the Holy Roman Empire. So no one knows, really, it's not out there in the public, about the actual borders of the Holy Roman Empire. Now you can look it up on Wikipedia and they'll say it looks something like this. I'm telling you, it's baloney. It's bullcrap. And if you have any information on the actual borders that's not baloney, I would love to see it. Moving on. Love to hear about more about China, Russia, social credit, infrastructure, resources. The transfer of power that's going to take place from west to the east. I believe Syria may be the start of that. That's exactly what I believe. Syria is, the transfer of power is, and it's going to be through war. I'm hoping it isn't, but see, with people in America catching on to ICLEI, ICLEI is the sustainable development thing that goes into each of our communities, counties, and commissions and stuff, and tries to get the sustainable development ball rolling. People have called on to that big time. They've changed their name, and they're having a difficult time, I believe, with America. It's going to be tough when they tried to make all these laws about rainwater and growing your food. People are pushing back. So if people are going to be pushing back in America against this huge crackdown, well, they're going to have a war here. And if they have a war here, then they can declare martial law. And then they can easily crack down on us. because, I mean, our infrastructure has to be rebuilt. I believe that's why they bombed Syria, because the infrastructure has to be rebuilt there, and it's in a central location. And I just showed you the map. America's pretty central on this continent as well. Maybe America has to get bombed the shit out of in order to rebuild. Would love to see a video about this, and I've been going around in circles in my head of what the connectivity is regarding the events of the last few years. Your research is awesome. Detail gets finished. Where others just, yeah, I wish I could keep doing this, but again, my neurological symptoms really suck. So again, that's referring back, and I have a lot more instances where we empowered Russia and China, but basically throughout this whole ordeal, let's look at when George W. Bush, W as they call him, when after 9/11, where does he go? He invades Afghanistan, takes over the poppy fields. Where do you think all of that drug money is going, guys? I'm thinking it's going to Russia and China, and it has been. And Mena, Arkansas, what I talked about with the Clinton administration, is an example of that. I mean, Obama was doing the same thing when he did all of those gun running things I was talking about. What do you think was going on underneath the scenes of the gun running? Drug running. Money laundering with HSBC. They have Loretta Lynch put in there to give them a slap on the wrist. The money laundering has now went from little banks in Mena, Arkansas to HSBC, Goldman Sachs. All of them are doing this. All of them. Where is that money going? It has to be going to China to rebuild the new Silk Road, because it's in all of their best interest. The nobility, the oligarchs, it's in their best interest. Well, I hope I've answered all of your questions, and I am working on it. I will get a video done Feeding the Dragon 3, because I am still working on it, but it takes me a lot longer now with all of the symptoms that I have. Anyway, this Call of Duty Goddess signing off, and as always, I've got your 6.